For anybody, I repeat the question. On what legal basis are you confiscating our materials? I asked the policeman in the fancy cycle helmet, on what basis, legal basis, are you confiscating our materials? You refuse to answer.
I'd like to ask you, as Secretary of a union branch in Liverpool, University and College Union, University of Liverpool, I'm the Secretary of that. Why are you doing this today? On what legal basis do you have?
None!
I will be making a report to the membership. 1,000 members will hear this report. And what I will say is that the police had no grounds. And when asked, they said nothing. They said absolutely nothing. So why are you doing this? On what legal grounds do you have?
Being paid by the taxpayer to deny free speech in this city.
Nicholas Ling is a keen amateur photographer. On November the 12th last year, he says officers from the Met Police stopped and searched him outside West Ruislip train station under Section 44 of the Terrorism Act.
I said, how come I've been stopped here? It's a public footbridge.
And you were only taking photos of trains?
I was, yes.
And what did you think?
I thought it was totally unnecessary, because it's not like I was vandalising anything. All I was doing was just standing here with my camera.
Nicholas's case is becoming more common, at least according to the Railway magazine. Its deputy editor says his postbag has been filling up with similar complaints.
There's a lot of anger. It's not just railway enthusiasts, it's people in the street, it's tourists being hassled, it's students who are doing photography and architecture courses, and it's people just walking up and down the street who just want to take a picture of anything. Even MPs have been hassled as well.
So what is Section 44? Well, it gives police officers the power to stop and search us in specific areas without the reasonable need to suspect us of being involved in terrorism. Currently, though, it's being applied across the whole of London. The guidance to officers is to use it sparingly. The latest figures, though, show that's not the case. From October 2006 to September 2007, the Met stopped and searched more than 54,000 Londoners. Yet for the next 12-month period, the numbers almost tripled, and of those, just over 1,200 were arrested. So is it being overused, and is it an effective weapon against terrorism?
And I'm delighted to be able to mark the next step in the delivery of the government's national identity scheme, the unveiling of this country's first ID card, the ID card for foreign nationals.
History teaches us that if you give the police too much power, eventually they will misuse that power, and I think that's what's happened with Section 44. If you look at some of the occasions when it's been used, for example, the arms fairs protests and the Heathrow runway protests, people were stopped and searched under Section 44 when neither could be said to be likely to involve terrorist activity.
So it's increasingly controversial. Back in 2004, the Met Police Authority said the power trampled on the basic human rights of too many Londoners. The accusation is that you're misusing this power. Are you?
No, we're not. The feedback, the very limited complaints and the public reaction to the way we go about this use of this power shows that we're not misusing it overall or in specific cases. We recognise the sensitivities, but remember it is a really important method of deterring and preventing terrorism and reassuring the public at large that we're here to make London safer.
That, though, won't reassure people like Nicholas Ling and perhaps many others who make up the tens of thousands of Londoners being stopped and searched each year. The Met and the Police Authority are now reviewing Section 44.
What sort of signals does this send to people who are university age or young people now saying, well, she did it and she's the Home Secretary now, so why shouldn't I?
Well, because it was wrong, because we now know a lot more about the harm that it does. And actually we're seeing fewer young people taking drugs, fewer people generally taking cannabis now than previously. And that's because of the efforts that we've put into informing people about the harms, into tackling that problematic drug use and the effect it has on our community. Today I want to talk about how we can make sure that local people are really engaged, how we can make sure there's more local information, how we can work across government to tackle crime, how we can work with business and others to actually design out the opportunities for crime.
I'll come back. if fewer people are taking cannabis, why do you need to reclassify it?
Well, because we know now about the fact that there are some forms of cannabis that are getting much stronger, that there are clear links to mental health problems, and it's right that we should look at that reclassification as sending a strong message about those potential harms.
Okay. Moving on to the government's crime strategy, you want to persuade us that we should feel safe. Well, the best way to do that is actually to make us safer, isn't it?
Absolutely, which is why the fact that crime has fallen by a third, why, you know, in 1997 you were likely to be burgled once every 50 years, now once every 25 years, sorry, and now that's down to less than once every 40 years, where we've seen car crime halved. All of those things make us safer, and I hope they make us feel safer as well. But people also want to know what's going on at a local level. You know, how do I get information about crime levels in relation to my particular area, and importantly, how do I then feed into the priorities that local police and other partners are working on? How can I tell them that, you know, I think there's a problem down the road and something needs to... Well, what's important is that we're increasingly seeing, and by next April we'll see, neighbourhood policing teams all over the country, supported by and working with police community support officers, with officers from local councils who are there, you know, on the streets, day in, day out, talking to local people, you know, talking about where a car's been damaged or where there's vandalism, thinking together about what they can actually do to tackle that, involving local people in tackling that crime. Now, that's why, of course, we've actually seen levels of concern about antisocial behaviour coming down over recent years, but we've got to keep working at it, and I think the way you do that is bringing all of those partners that are tackling crime together to do it more effectively.
Let's go back. You've admitted to taking cannabis. Other senior politicians have admitted to doing it as well. Should we assume, basically, that everybody of your particular generation took drugs when they were younger?
No, you shouldn't assume that. I did on a few occasions. I was wrong. Actually, I think what we should focus on is the difference that people are making today to people's lives. That was what I was elected to do, and that's what I'll be focusing on today. Continuing our drive to cut crime, helping local people to feel safer, joining up across government, working with business to continue that progress on making people feel safer and cutting crime levels. So, I mean, first of all, Andrew, we have started just this week issuing ID cards to foreign nationals. You know, so there is progress, and this is a programme that is delivering.
You're going to carry on with it?
Secondly, yes, we are going to carry on with it. Secondly, we have always said not that ID cards are the answer to terrorism, but frankly, when the Al-Qaeda training manual tells people, potential terrorists, that one of the things they should try and do is to get multiple identities, I think there is a link between actually enabling people to tie their identity to themselves and our battle against terrorism. And I'm delighted to be able to mark the next step in the delivery of the government's national identity scheme, the unveiling of this country's first ID card, the ID card for foreign nationals. We all need to be able to prove who we are quickly, easily and securely when travelling, when opening a bank account, when applying for a new job. We also want to be sure that others are who they say they are, to protect ourselves and our families against ID fraud, and to help protect our community against crime, illegal immigration and terrorism. The National Identity Scheme will deliver a secure and simple proof of ID for all those legally entitled to live and work in the UK, using fingerprint biometrics to link people securely to their own identity. The first applicants will be able to apply for cards from the 25th of November this year, because foreign nationals living and working and studying here legally want to be able to prove that easily. And we want to be able to prevent those here illegally from benefiting from the privileges of Britain.
They didn't say a word. They just tried to lift me out of my seat.
Did you feel scared?
Oh, well, of course I was scared for one thing. Quite likely these guys didn't know the correct steps to lift somebody out of a seat, and God knows what damage they could do.
The man in the next seat, Steve Forrest, shouted out in Walter's defence.
Joking! Let's go. You must be joking! Let's go. Leave me alone! Leave me alone! You wanted to leave the premises.
We want you to leave the premises.
On what grounds?
Arena.
Sorry. You can't make me leave the premises. I've got a right to my views, as Jack has got right to his.
The Labour Party's apologised to him, the chairman of the Labour Party, I've apologised to him. It shouldn't have happened.
Laws are the weapon of choice for beating down political dissent, with the politicians saying one thing about freedom and doing another.
That's fine, sir, you can make your protests. Just thank goodness we live in a democracy and you can.